Welcome to People, Power, and Politics. Hard talk, riveting interviews, community updates, in-depth analysis. That's People, Power, and Politics. We tell it to you as it is. No holds barred. You are the people, you have the power. We bring you the politics. To listen to our show, be a guest, or to advertise, visit www.pppradio.nyc. That's www.pppradio.nyc.
Honorable Marcus Garvey, 1887 to 1940, was a black political activist, journalist, entrepreneur, and orator who founded the Universal Negro Improvement Association and African Communities League, which had a following of more than 6 million African-descended people worldwide. Despite his massive popularity, this Jamaican-born international leader was wrongfully sentenced to prison by the U.S. government on trumped-up mail fraud charges. Today, we are speaking with his son, Dr. Julius Garvey, who recently authored the book Justice for Garvey. Welcome, sir. Such an honor and privilege to speak with you today.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be on your show.
Our pleasure. So let's talk about the fight for exoneration. Dr. Garvey, you have long been a prominent advocate for your father's posthumous pardon. What do you believe are the most significant barriers to achieving justice for Marcus Garvey, and how do you see the current movement making progress?
Yes, the important thing is to highlight justice and the miscarriage of justice and any way in which that can be righted. And we need to then revisit the definition of exoneration and or pardon. And we've tried to achieve the exoneration of my father of all charges against him. We've been doing this since 1987, which was the centenary of his birth, and we appeared before the Congress of the United States, House Judiciary Committee, and there have been House resolutions consistently since that time up to the present asking for his exoneration. But that's a very political process. At the present time, Yvette Clarke, a representative from Brooklyn, has such a resolution before the Congress. And of course, it's discussed in the Judiciary Committee. Now, what we've tried to do is to use the ability of the president to issue a posthumous pardon on his own. He doesn't have to go to the Congress. He doesn't have to ask anybody else on his own say so. He can sign a document and pardon Marcus Garvey or anybody else that he wants to pardon. Mm-hmm. But in our specific case, we would want him to also say that there was no criminality, that there was no crime committed, and it was an unjust situation. So we want to use the posthumous pardon as a process to go directly to clearing Marcus Garvey's name. Now, we've been doing this since President Obama in 2016. Our law firm made the application for the posthumous pardon. He did not do it. We've been doing it with Biden in his first term, and also in second term, also with Kamala Harris, and we have not had a satisfactory response. So we're continuing, and that's where we are at the present time.
Hopefully you would have some success with this new incoming administration, seeing that he's seeking pardon for himself. Well,
the administration hasn't come in yet, so we're not going there just yet in terms of our thinking. We don't know what the incoming administration will do, but the present administration has up until January the 20th. Still remaining in the term of office. So we are continuing to advocate for justice from President Biden.
So let's talk about your book, sir, and its role in the movement. In Justice for Marcus Garvey, you edited a collection of essays and personal narratives that highlight your father's legacy. How do you hope this book will influence public perception of Garvey's contributions, particularly in the context of modern social justice movements?
Well, it's both a historical document as well as a legal document, shall we say, reviewing the court case, etc. And by and large, we don't control our educational process, certainly not enough. And this is also an attempt to educate the current generation about what happened, shall we say, 100 years ago, because, it's simply repeating itself in terms of the African American community. I would say, continues to be fragmented between so-called nativists as well as immigrants from the Caribbean, as well as immigrants from Africa. Very often we don't see ourselves as one people. And that was one of the problems, back in the 20s, so-called, the nativist approach from those who had been enslaved in the United States, seeing themselves as somehow different from others who had emigrated to the United States. And that was one of the ways in which J. Edgar Hoover and the FBI was able to use the divisions within the African American community to destroy, a concentrated movement, for shall we say, freedom and economic as well as social and political justice within the country. And at the present time, I think definitely that division still exists. And unless we come together as one people, that division will continue to be exploited by the new administration that will be coming in, just as other administrations have. So the purpose of the book is try to show us a historical fact of what happened back in the 1920s. And the fact is that it is continuing to happen. And unless we unify, African people worldwide would still be at the bottom of the ladder in every society in which we live. So it's both historical in terms of obeying facts as well as legal and showing how the justice system can be used to perpetrate injustice, to destroy somebody's character, to destroy a movement, because what becomes a legal fact can become a social and political fact and ideology and shape the course of history. So the course of history was changed because of the illegality of use of the judiciary against Marcus Garvey and the UNIA. So that his strength was weakened, the Black community was weakened in terms of its autonomy. And we see the results of that fragmentation. So we're hoping that we can learn from history.
Truth to power, sir, and your father, the Honorable Marcus Garvey, wrote, "A people without knowledge of their past history, origin, and culture is like a tree without roots." And looking at his global impact, your father's influence spanned continents, inspiring millions of people of African descent worldwide. How do you see his teachings resonating in today's global Black diaspora, and what lessons do you think they offer in the fight for racial justice and equality?
Well, as you mentioned, he was a forerunner of many people who were in essence his disciples, people such as Kwame Nkrumah, who after 1945 took the Pan-African concept out to the continent, and Ghana became independent in 1957. That was followed by Nigeria. 1960, the first president was Nnamdi Azikiwe, who was also a disciple of Marcus Garvey. Same thing in Kenya with Jomo Kenyatta. Nelson Mandela in South Africa. All of those people were in essence disciples of Marcus Garvey. The same thing in the Caribbean. All of the Caribbean movements since the riots and so on in 1935. And the leaders that came up were disciples of Marcus Garvey. So his influence was worldwide, continues to be worldwide. If you look at so many of the flags all over, the red, black, and green is dominant. So Pan-Africanism is alive and well. It's in transition from the Association of African Unity to the African Union. It needs to be a federal government that is strong enough to represent Africa worldwide, both in the Security Council as well as at the United Nations. And, I should be at the G7, not just at the G20, et cetera, et cetera. So again, it requires unity. There's been progress, but there needs to be more progress in terms of the unity of the continent and the African Union with its diaspora as the sixth region. That needs to be solidified so that we can have not only political union, but trade and commerce with the continent, which is what my father also advocated with his use of the Black Star Line Shipping Company. So we're on our way, but we have not achieved perfection, but there's been consistent movement in the right direction.
Okay, so we just discussed his global impact. Looking at the legacy of Black empowerment, we have already established that the Honorable Marcus Garvey is considered one of the most influential figures in Black history, especially when it comes to the concept of Black pride and self-determination. In your view, how can contemporary movements of Black empowerment draw inspiration from his work while addressing today's unique challenges?
Well, we need a complete transformation of the educational system. As Marcus Garvey said, you were just quoting him, we must liberate our minds from mental slavery because, well, others may help us to liberate the body. None but ourselves can liberate our mind. And most of our educational systems are still designed, by the Europeans that colonized us, or in the United States by the majority group. And as you know, here in the United States, they're trying to deny any such concept as Black education, if you will, or Black history. So it's important for us to have our own educational system so that the minds of our youth are oriented in the proper direction, and they don't have to self-educate, if you will, and unlearn what they've learned in high school and college, to assume their own dignity as human beings and free themselves to be properly productive within society. So education is now the key step moving forward in terms of the determination of African development and the development of African people.
And finally, so what are your words of inspiration to the young generation, and how can one get a copy of your book, Justice for Marcus Garvey?
Well, but Justice for Marcus Garvey is published by Broadleaf, and it's on the shelf of most bookstores. We're going to be doing book signing in Brooklyn at the Adan bookstore and at the New York Peace Center today. So, and other booksellers should be carrying it. But you can go to the Broadleaf book publishers to get a book directly in that way. I don't know if it's on Amazon yet.
Okay.
It's on Amazon, yeah. I've been told it's on Amazon as well, yes.
Okay, great. And words of inspiration for the young, for the generation, the young generation?
Up to you, mighty people, you can accomplish what you will. And if you have no confidence in self, you've lost twice in the race of life. But with confidence, you've won even before you've started.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure speaking with you today.
Thank you for having me.
Our pleasure. Bye-bye.
People, Power, and Politics. Hard talk, riveting interviews, community updates, in-depth analysis. That's People, Power, and Politics. We tell it to you as it is. No holds barred. You are the people. You have the power. We bring you the politics. To listen to our show, be a guest, or to advertise, visit www.pppradio.nyc. That's www.pppradio.nyc.